Committee, Chairman David Watson.
Frank Fisk, please.
Okay. I believe the first one on the list is the Proclamation 1512, the statewide proclamation on the commercial taking of fish and turtles. We went over some changes yesterday, which pleases the commission. I can talk about it some more.
I'll make a motion, we approve proclamation.
Let me do that. Mr. Chairman, the Fisheries Committee and I recommend passage of Proclamation 15-12, commercial taking of fishing and turtles.
Second.
Thank you, Chairman Watson. We have a second from Commissioner Baker. Any discussion? All right, this is a vote on Proclamation 15. Any discussion from the audience? Okay, Ricky, please go ahead. State your name and everything.
Ricky Scott, Chairman of Commercial Fishing Advisory Committee, and I want to congratulate the TWRA and our Commercial Fishing Advisory Committee for hashing through these things before the commission meeting. And I appreciate Bill Cox and Mr. Watson for being at our Commercial Fishing Advisory Committee meeting. I think that helps some too. And I just want to hope we can do this every year. And thank y'all.
Thank you, sir. It's a great thing when we can work together. So, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of Proclamation 15-12, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Proclamation 15-12, commercial taking of fish and turtles, passes.
Frank?
Thank you. The second proclamation was 1526. This is an amendment to the current sport fishing proclamation 1417. And this is the one that closes that section of Chilhowie Reservoir as soon as the paperwork gets processed on this.
Mr. Chairman, the Fishery Committee and I recommend passage of the amendment to Proclamation 15-26, sport fishing.
All right, motion's been made. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Commissioner Cox. Any discussion from the commission? Any from the audience? All right, all in favor of Proclamation 15-26, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Proclamation 15-26, sport fishing proclamation carries.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
I'd like to call Tim Churchill.
Got a series of proclamations here for designating, proclaiming our state fishing area proclamations on these state fishing lakes that are not currently within WMAs or public hunting areas.
Mr. Chairman, the Fishery Committee and I recommend passage of Proclamation 1513, Proclamation 1514, Proclamation 1515, Proclamation 1516, Proclamation 1517, Proclamation 1518, Proclamation 1522, Proclamation 15-23, Proclamation 15-24, and Proclamation 15-25.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Commissioner Baker. Any discussion from the commission? Any from the audience? All in favor of proclamations 15-13 through 18 and 15-22 through 25, say aye. Aye. Opposed? proclamations 15-13, 15-14, 15-15, 15-16, 15-17, 15-18, 15-22, 15-23, 15-24, and 15-25 carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Thank you, Chairman Watson. Moving to the Budget Committee. Chairman Harold Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes John Mayer.
Thank you, Commissioners. We're asking the commission to amend the budget by $9,995 to purchase a piece of equipment to clear the linear fields and the openings on the South Cherokee WMA and the Tellico Lake WMA. This is a grant given by the National Wild Turkey Federation Superfund that our WMA manager, David Whitehead, had applied for and received.
Thank you, John, and thank Mr. Whitehead for his work in pursuing those dollars. Mr. Chairman, the Budget Committee and I recommend passage of the budget expansion in the amount of $9,995 for the purchase of a tree and brush cutter serving Region 3.
Motion's been made, seconded by Commissioner Swan. Any discussion from the commission?
John, is this one of these machine grinder type that goes on the front of a
Yes, sir. It's
tiller, it just grinds it up as it goes?
no, sir. It's you see them on the highways for the clearing the high brush or the high trees. You know, so it's an attachment to a tractor that it's a boom arm that cuts those openings. The boom arm. Or this way. It's either this way or this way.
Any other discussion? Any from the audience? Hearing none, all in favor of a budget expansion of $9,995 for a brown tree and brush cutter, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
John, thank you so much. Appreciate it, sir. Committee recognizes Mark Odlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are requesting the commission to expand the budget $30,000 to accept funds from the U.S. Department of Agriculture Wildlife Services for testing hunter-killed ducks in regions 1 and 2 for the highly pathogenic avian influenza virus.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, the Budget Committee and I recommend passage of a budget expansion in the amount of $30,000 to collect swab samples from hunter-killed ducks related to the avian flu, whatever it's called, the flu.
High path AI.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second? Motion been made and seconded by Commissioner Holbert. Any discussion from the commission? Any from the audience? I'd just like to say I think this is a good thing. Okay. All in favor for the budget expansion of $30,000, which is 100% federal funds to collect swab samples for high path AI, say aye. Say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
We're in Canada now.
Hey. Thought Julie Schuster was back on here.
Sir?
Mr. Boyd Barker, please.
Thank you, Boyd Barker with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. I just want to say on behalf of the department and on the state vet's office and the poultry industry, thank you for your partnership with this project of sampling the ducks. There's been a great effort to try to get out in front of this potential disease that may be coming our way, but I hope we dodge a bullet, but thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, very much.
One other note, I'm not saying this to be not, I have truly heard how great your folks have been to work with in this effort. I mean, they have The team camaraderie has been the way it should be, and so thank you all. And please thank your staff, because it's made a huge difference, sir.
Commissioner Johnson has went above and beyond to
Yes,
get
sir.
on board with this and putting the state vet's office on alert, and it's just amazing to see that normally the Department of Ag and the poultry integrators are not necessarily on the same page, but everybody's working together on this issue because it could be a catastrophe if it hits. So we greatly appreciate everything everybody's doing. So.
Mr. Chairman, we have one more item that is not on the agenda, but we did advise the public at our last meeting that this would be discussed, and in fact, the Budget Committee met yesterday regarding this. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Barry Sumners, if he would, to make a presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Cannon. And if you allow me just a moment to do a little 2-minute recap of what has brought us to this point. When someone buys a lifetime sportsman's license, the money that they spend on that license goes into an endowment fund that we will never spend. What we spend is the interest that money generates. When the lifetime license was created, interest rates had historically been in the 4% to 8% range, and lifetime licenses were priced accordingly. In 2009, interest rates dropped to below 1%, and for the past year, we've gotten less than 0.1%. It's come up some, creeped up just a little bit about every month since springtime. We're currently at an interest rate of 0.13%. And what this means is if someone is buying an annual sportsman's license, then decides they will invest in a lifetime license, all we're going to get is the interest on that money. So instead of getting $165 a year for an annual sportsman's license, we'll be getting interest totaling $2.57. So the commission took an interest in our interest issue, and you know, if anyone ever asks, what can a commission do for a wildlife agency, I believe this is just a textbook example. The people up on this end of the room are the heroes of the story. They had the clout to get the attention of the people downtown, and we had tried before, but they got their attention, they understood the issue, they were able to explain it to the people that mattered. And yesterday we had a good session with some people from the state treasurer's office, and we were able to have these successful business people helping us to make business decisions. We think this is going to generate most of $1 million per year for the agency without anyone having to pay more. Now, Commissioner Cannon wanted to have a slide up here about our investment options. I know you can't see this one, but I've kind of zoomed in on that little triangular box there. And from this point, Commissioner Cannon, I'll either continue talking or let you explain this to them. All right. What we're looking at here is basically 3 different funds that we now have the option of participating in. This first column, called the SPIF, State Pooled Investment Fund, is kind of the default. This is what we've been in all along. This shows this kind of a 5-year trend or whatever at 0.03%. It is a little bit higher than that now, but it's still just a very low rate. The advantage to this fund is that it is a liquid fund. We can get the money when we need it. But bear in mind that with these endowment funds for the lifetime license and for our Watchable Wildlife Fund, we don't ever get to spend that money. So having it available is not an issue. The second one, labeled ITF, my understanding is there's only one organization participating in that. It does pay a higher interest rate, has a duration of 2 2/3 year. The one to the right, called the City Big Fund. If I understand right, that is what the people from Treasury recommended we get into. This is still not a great interest rate, but much higher than what we've been getting. It does lock the money up for a long time. They indicated that they could work with us if we needed some of it out. They thought that would not be a big problem. And so I think that's where we stand. And I guess Commissioner Cannon probably wants to make a recommendation to the commission.
Barry, thank you so much. Up to last year, the only options that we had are the first two funds that you see on the screen. We were intentional in waiting before we moved funds from the SPIF to the ITF fund in hopes that the legislature may take some action to allow us to have more flexibility in our investments. Because while 0.92 is better than what we have right now, I think we had hopes that we could get around 3%, which is what Tennessee Promise has. Unfortunately, the way our funds are designated, we cannot take advantage of the same investment options that the Tennessee Promise program can. However, with the leadership of the State Treasury Office and the cooperation with the legislature, both of which we're very, very grateful for, we do have a third option, and this just came available to us, and that is the City BIG Less Corporate Investment Fund. After the presentation yesterday, the Budget Committee took action, and on behalf of the Budget Committee, I recommend approval by the Commission for the reinvestment of the watchable wildlife as well as the lifetime sportsman endowment funds to be invested into the City BIG Less Corp funding. And with action, assuming your favorable action today, we are also asking for the immediate authorization for our staff to implement this reinvestment with the State Treasurer's Office.
I'll take that in the form of a motion from Chairman Cannon, and we have a second from Commissioner Woodson, sorry. Any discussion on the commission? Any from the audience? All in favor of moving our funds to the City Big Less Corp fund, authorizing the agency to do that? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Barry, thank you. Thank you so much. And Barry's been a huge help in walking us through these waters. One other point of information for our October meeting, Commissioner Woodson requested and very wisely recommended that we take a look at our reserve monies, our rainy day fund monies, and see if there's a portion of that that can also be invested in these funds so that they will draw similar interest. At our October meeting, there will be a plan presented to the Budget Committee for consideration. I fully expect that we're going to be recommending a portion of those monies be reinvested in these funds as well, so stay tuned. Mr. Chairman, that's it. Thank you so much.
How about Ken Tarkington?
Oh, okay. Come on, Ken. Committee recognizes Ken Tarkington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry about that, Ken.
Oh, that's okay. Remember, I can get this at home too, just as well. There should be a two-page report, financial report, in your books. We're reporting through the month of July of 2015. At the top of the page, the boating fund is approximately 15% less than the collections on registration fees from the prior year. The expenses for the July period is approximately 5% of the total or annual allotment. The wildlife fund in the middle of the page is approximately 1.8% down from our projection. As you recall, we had a fee increase as of July, and some folks, because of the fee increase, elected either not to buy or to buy it later, and I think several of them have elected to buy it later. August has improved somewhat. The expenses through July are approximately 3%, 2.9% of the annual allotment. Is a little bit lower than it has been in the past, simply because our allotment is higher from the many carry forwards that we carried forward into this year from last year. The two endowments at the bottom of the page are identified: the Watchable Wildlife Endowment with a balance of a little over $6 million, and the Lifetime Sportsman with $42.5 million balance. Second page at the top details the Wetland Acquisition Fund. There's a balance of approximately $14,400,000 in it. We've zeroed the maintenance out, as we usually do. And the compensation, or in lieu of tax, has $824,000. In order to try to bore you to tears, there is a withdrawal with a credited $377,000. That is approximately what we will pay for the in lieu of tax for the prior year. General government was not able to get us a certification of those properties, those certified tax statement of those properties, so we had to set that up as an accrual. So we will have that same amount plus a little bit. It's about $378,000 that will show in August as an expense to offset that. And then I'll also in August include those properties or those counties and how much was paid to each. Any questions or comments?
Any questions from the commission? Two side notes. And Ken, thank you. Sorry for my oversight, because Ken has known the questions to ask. There's times that, particularly in the state budgeting process, the investments and all, candidly, we don't know what we don't know, because state business is a little different. So Ken, thank you for your questions. I do want to point out on the first page, if you go to the very bottom, the number of Lifetime Sportsman's license that have been purchased. And you've seen the interest rate. We want and hope to continue to keep doing that. But I think Barry's presentation also is a reminder that, is this something that is sustainable? We're not addressing that right now, but long-term, that is something that's got to be looked at. And it's fair to get that on the table at least. So, Ken, thank you so much. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
I'll give it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Cannon. I'd just really like to say thank you to Ken and Barry and Director Carter and all the staff, and especially Harold for being the chairman, and David Watson, Jeff McMillan, Jamie Woodson, Bill Cox, and Bill Swan for the budget committee has, for the past year and a half, has went above and beyond. I mean, they've worked their tail off, and for the benefit of our resources, our state, the agency, and I really appreciate all they've done. I don't think we could have had a better crew to work for us, and I just want to say how much I appreciate all you have done. Thank you. Moving on. Is there anything else to be brought before the commission? Director Carter, do you have any announcements?
I guess they're not really announcements, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to give you a few things that happened at our meeting this week with the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, U.S. Forest Service, USGS, and a bunch of other federal agencies that were there, and some interactions that went on. There was also another meeting this week that our agency is participating in, as the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators just held their meeting. Just wanted to tell you that we have a lot of people that participate in national leadership positions, and Darren Ryder was just elected president of that association. So I thought that, well, where Darren is, he's probably out doing some BLA stuff. But anyway, I thought that was good that we'll have that in.
He's sitting over there, just, resting.
Oh, there he is. Well, anyway, thank you, Darren. I'm glad and congratulations. The United States Department of Agriculture and the Animal Damage Control folks were at this meeting and spoke quite a bit about feral hog control and so forth. And I know some of y'all have seen some of the things that was been in print lately, the Field and Stream article and all. I just wanted to say that the efforts that our folks have been doing are certainly recognized nationally, and I was proud of them and some of the work that came out of that. The avian influenza thing was a big topic of concern among all the states, and especially those that are in the Mississippi Flyway. And the work that Tennessee's doing there as well was also recognized, and the effort that's going in by a lot of states in terms of making the samples and the budget, the amendment that you just made to help us comply with the national efforts to make sure that this thing doesn't get out of control as it has already in some of the domestic flocks around the country, and we certainly don't want to have that interfere with our waterfowl or even make it even worse here in the U.S. And we're working very closely with the U.S. with our own Department of Agriculture in that as well. The changes in the Pittman-Robertson that I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to note that has to go through Congress, obviously, but those changes that were talked about, if they go forward, would be a great help to us in how we can manage some of those funds. But there's also a lot of movement from both the industry and the association for some changes that could possibly, depending if they get implemented and all the details that go with it, that would really be a significant impact to our budget in a very positive way, and allowing us to be able to count some things toward federal aid projects that we've never been able to do before. So again, to the budget side of things, that was something good. On the Wallop Road fishing side, fishing and boating, news is not so good there, other than this year it'll be slightly higher than it was last year, but it'll be so insignificant you won't notice a difference. But going forward, the projections are that it will actually go down. So we're going to have to watch that one pretty closely. Probably the other biggest topic there was, and again back to the budget side, is multi-year licenses. And there's a joint task force, which I'm privileged to serve on, that works with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the states that are trying to iron out some of those details as to whether or not going forward again, our multi-year licenses, like most of the other states, would be able to really be counted as we go forward. And I know you know we've gone through on the senior citizens license. We could possibly go through that same thing on our other lifetime licenses, but we will meet in December and we'll try to go forward from there. This was a record number of states this year that participated in the North American Wetlands Conservation Act in terms of putting together money to help preserve prairie pothole regions in Canada for waterfowl, and along with that, a record number of waterfowl. So those two things have worked well together, and going forward, it looks like that's actually even going to get better. There's a change on the national change to change that whole program in terms of how the money interacts between the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, the states, and the Canadian provinces. The Blue Ribbon Panel that I've mentioned to you before is a thing that was put together by the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, asked to put this group of leaders across the United States together to try to find a funding way for non-game and endangered species that doesn't exist now. It actually has gone a little bit farther, and maybe we'll be able to utilize in some of the other programs as well as non-game endangered species. Johnny Morris from Bass Pro Shops is one co-chair, and the former governor of Wyoming, but Governor Freudenthal is the other. They're excited. Johnny Morris has already put his PR folks together to help build the campaign. They'll have their final meeting in December, and they'll go to Congress with what they project to have happen. And right now, it's made up of you would know the folks if we went through the list, and there's about 22 people on there that make this up. They're meeting again next Tuesday to finalize some of the things, and then finally in December to come forward with where they want to go. The CWD efforts have become kind of a focus again, and a lot of the deer farming things that are in the other states. A lot of the states are closing down their borders on what comes into their state, but are not closely watching what goes out of their state. So there's a national effort to try to change that, to make sure that whatever that movement is, and it's even down to a lot of the scent producers that in association with deer farming There's some CWD concerns with that, and some national movement maybe to regulate that a little bit more than it has been. And actually, the industry stepped forward, again with the Archery Trades Association, oddly enough, to say, here's what we'd like to do to keep that from happening. So may be able to handle that without even any legislative things. We've had, Chairman Bledsoe knows, we've been working quite a bit with the Farm Bureau on some buzzard control problems and a few other federally protected birds. We'll have a meeting this coming Monday with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Farm Bureau, and some other associations like Cattlemen's Associations and others. I won't say it's a done deal, but everything that I see coming forward out of it, we'll be able to enter into agreements with the Farm Bureau or with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The paperwork's done. We just need to get the implementation side of it down, and we'll be able to give some assistance to farmers across the state who are having problems with buzzards, with vultures, and their livestock. The other problem birds that we're looking at, we have some very positive feedback yesterday, actually, and I think we'll be able to move forward on that too, but until I have the details, I won't come back to you with that. The only other thing I've mentioned is the Carroll Lake repairs. I think we're moving along well. The commission, of course, back in, I guess in April of last year or May, when we met in Paris and you voted to go forward with that, there's been just a lot of ancillary issues that had to be cleared up. I think we're on track to go forward with that. And then, of course, our next meeting, as I'm sure you're about to talk about, will be in October. And I think we'll have some interaction with Tennessee Valley Authority and some of the things that they've been doing with us on joint projects that we'll be able to recognize them as well. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ed. Any questions from the commission?
Thank you, sir.
Greatly appreciate all you're doing. You stay busy. Anything from the commission? Nothing from the audience? All right, our next commission meeting will be October the 15th and 16th in Chattanooga. That'll be a Thursday and a Friday. And if all hearts and minds are cleared, we stand adjourned till then.